This is Let's Get Real with your realtor hosts, Mallory Myers and Rob Calabro, talking real life and real estate.
All right, welcome in from the Buckeye State to the Sunshine State. This is Let's Get Real. How you doing, Mal?
What's up, Rob? I'm good. It was funny, as I was setting up this morning, I looked out the window and it is such a dreary day here. And it's cool, like 50 degrees and rainy and wet and gloomy. And I'm like, wow, it really feels like Columbus, Ohio today.
Hey, now that's kind of a dig on us. We've got snow covered and about 20 degrees here, so you're still doing better than we are. But you know what? I like it when it snows. I'll take that over the rain any day.
Yeah. I miss a good snowfall, but after the first day, it's not pretty anymore, and it's just a mess.
That's true. 100% true. So we got a great show. We're going to talk a couple of different topics. We're going to talk about renting versus buying. We found a great article through Realtor.com that shows some statistics on that and how things have drastically changed over the last couple of years. We got a couple of other articles we're going to dive into, some statistics about consumer confidence as far as whether now's a good time to sell, whether now is a good time to buy. And I think we're going to dive into the last topic is going to be, should you include residential real estate in your retirement plan as a part of your retirement? And something probably that's on a lot of homeowners' minds. And so we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Are you ready to dive in?
Let's get to it.
All right, so the Realtor.com article I mentioned talked about the top 100 cities, or they did a research survey on 100 cities regarding whether it's better to more cost effective to own a property and pay a mortgage or to pay rent in that particular city. So what it found was in about 3/4 of those 100 cities, it's more cost effective to own a property than it is to rent a house. Does that come as a surprise to you?
Not right now. Not right now at all. I have a friend who's going to put his 1-bedroom condo on the market, and has to be 600-ish square feet. It's in a great location. But I asked him what he thinks he's going to put it on the market for a rental. And he said $1,900. Wow. $1,900 a month for a 1-bedroom. That's probably 600 square feet. It's in an incredible location, walking distance to downtown Tampa. Mm-hmm. He works for the Lightning. And so he walks to work, walks to the Emily Arena. We park there and walk to the games. I mean, it's a great location, but $1,900 a month to rent. Rob, what do you think that could get you as a mortgage?
It could get you probably a pretty good house in a lot of areas. Depends on your down payment, of course.
Right.
But yeah, that's a pretty big mortgage payment. It's similar like that in Columbus in a lot of areas. I mean, if you look at the statistics, obviously Tampa's more expensive to rent than Columbus is on average. Mm-hmm. But, so I think I mentioned this to you earlier. We've got a neighborhood here in Columbus that we own a couple of rental properties in. I'm currently helping a buyer buy a house in that same neighborhood. And I can't get into the details too much, of course, but his payment is only going to be about $100 more than what we're charging for rent. However, he's going to have a single family home with a 2-car garage and a fenced in yard, and have 2 properties that are 600 square feet with no garage, just off-street parking. It's only $100 difference.
Wow.
But what you get is a lot more. So it's not like that in every area, of course. And if you look at this article, what you'll see is some of the more expensive cities like San Francisco and New York City, it actually makes more sense to rent than it does to buy because it's so expensive there. But as you get into most of the other parts of the country, the numbers don't shake out that way. And one thing it said is so rent has increased on average about 19% over the last year or so, which is crazy. It's more than home price appreciation. Obviously, the home price appreciation statistic you can look at in several different ways, and you'll see slightly different numbers depending on how the data is aggregated. But what I'm seeing is somewhere around 17% or so on average across the country. So technically rent has inflated more than the home values have been inflated over the last year or so.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have a couple friends who are renting, and they talked about their lease went up $400 to $500. Like, some people are expecting a $50 to $100 increase, when you get a lease renewal, but they're literally being pushed out because they can't afford a $500 jump in their rent, but somebody else will pay it. So they're going to the apartments will get their money, but you're being pushed out to try to find something in this market. And it is insane. It's insane. And so why it makes more sense to buy is you won't have to worry about a lease going up. You won't have to worry about being pushed out, and you're putting money back into your own pocket versus spending it for somebody else's pocket, And like I mentioned this to you earlier, I was talking to a client of mine, and they have been living in this rental for 5 years. And their lease is up, and the sellers, the landlords want to sell. So they're kind of being pushed out of the house. And so I'm helping them find something. And they said, we absolutely will not rent anymore. We have spent $500,000 in rent in the last 5 years. We are never renting again.
That is a staggering number.
$500,000. Think about that. Think about where you could be if you owned your own home, and that equity that you're paying is back into you. And then you go to sell. I mean, it's insane. It's insane what that number does for you. And it feels better swallowing that number, knowing that it's in your pocket, it's in your benefit, not somebody else's,
Yeah. So I've got some statistics that I'm going to throw at you here. So first off, the fastest growing rental market is the second fastest growing rental market of the markets that they analyzed was Tampa. They were up 25.6%.
Yep.
That is crazy. So, on average in the city of Columbus, the average rents are $1,247 a month, and they have increased 14% year over year. Now, I want to go down and find Tampa because I think you're going to be surprised at these numbers as well. Or maybe you won't be. The average, sorry. You still there?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with this thing here. So the average number, the average amount of rent in Tampa is $2,038 a month, and has increased 35.9%.
It's absolutely insane. It's insane. Everybody wants to live here from California, New York, Boston, all these more expensive places because they can afford it. And they have the money, to move here, where the people that live here can't even afford to live here anymore because of those prices and the demand, and other people being able to afford it, sweeping it up. It's really scary. And I know it's scaring a lot of people. And I've had a lot of conversations with renters about, having to take the step and buying, which, a lot of people holding back from buying right now is the fear, right? Like, I don't have the money saved. I'm not gonna be able to afford it. There's no way that I can do it being a teacher's salary or whatever it is. But that's just a limiting belief. That's, you are holding yourself back from being able to own wealth and real estate. You're holding yourself back by believing those lies that you're not able to do it. It does not hurt to try. It does not hurt to get with a lender and figure out what your finances are, because if you can afford rent in Tampa, you can probably afford a home.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of people end up being surprised at what the actual money it costs to buy a home. I mean, Yes, we talk about this all the time. It varies. We always are saying, save your money if you need to have more cash down payment, if you need to pay over value for appraisal, things like that. That's true, but it works the same way in the opposite direction. Like this person I mentioned a few minutes ago, buying a house where he's only $100 more than what we're charging for rent. And the down payment on that property is not that significant either. And the reality is, we want a multiple offer situation to get that house, and it appraised higher than a decent a little bit higher than what our purchase price was. So
Yeah.
you can find the right situations, but you've got to look, and you got to sometimes you have to be willing to be flexible on certain criteria, and be ready to act quick, just like you said. So why not run the numbers? Why not know where you stand with it? You may find that you're going to save money, or at least be at a break even point, and actually be doing a mortgage pay down, be creating equity for yourself, getting tax benefits for yourself. So
Yeah.
it is an interesting conversation, and I think a lot of people just are afraid to take that step.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I'm super big about educating my sphere on social media, of facts over myths, facts over the lies that you believe or you think are true. Rob, let me ask you, what is the average down payment your buyers actually put down?
That's, I don't know. I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it ranges probably from about 3% up to 20%. I'd say for the clients I work with, the average is probably right smack in the middle of that, something in the 12 to 15%. Now, typically you're either going to get a 5% down or a 20% down. You don't have too many people that go for that 10 or 15% range, but I would say probably 10, 12%. What about you? What do you think yours is?
That's what I think is the average for mine. I mean, it can be as little as, let's say, 10 grand, as max of 60, 80K. It really depends on the buyer's situation, right? But that point of, you don't need $100,000 saved. You don't need $40,000 saved. Maybe it's only 10 grand, maybe it's 5 grand. There are programs out there that can work for you. If you only have 5 grand saved, but you have great credit, you make good money, it's hard to save money when cost of living is expensive. Like, we understand that. So if you don't have a lot of savings, but maybe everything else looks great, don't hesitate to try, or maybe your credit doesn't look great, but you still want to know if you can do it. You will never know unless you try. The answer is always no until you try or ask. So it doesn't hurt anybody to see what you can do, see what you can get, so that you're not paying $500,000 in rent over 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know about Tampa, but I do know in Columbus and certain parts of Ohio, there are lender grant programs, down payment assistance programs. There's a variety of things. I've had closings where the client is not VA and almost brings nothing down, which, that's not for everybody. You have to qualify, you have to meet certain criteria, but to think that you could almost have no down payment and be buying a house and be paying similar or maybe less monthly than you would if you were renting the property. It's kind of crazy to think about that, but it's awesome too.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I had a call yesterday. I shared a picture of a closing I had recently, and a girl messaged me from it and said, "Hey, I just really want to try. I really want to see, I saw what you did for our friend. I really, I'm curious about the process. I don't think I'm going to be qualified, but I just want to try." It was a 6-minute phone call. I said, "Listen, based on your situation, we're in a fork in the road, right? We either can move right away, or you have a plan of action." And the plan of action or starting right away starts with having a phone call with the lender. And that will direct you whether you go this way or that way. Either way, we're going to meet around and we'll come at the end where we can help you buy. It just depends on which way we go. So meet with the lender, let them figure out your finances, let them help you in the best direction possible of where to begin, and then we can take it from there. And right after we get off the phone, I did an introductory text with her and my lender, and they have a call later today.
Awesome.
All
Good
it
story.
does is just to try. You know, you
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, why not? All right, so let's jump over to the other article we were discussing earlier today. So it's what to expect from the housing market now that the Feds have hiked interest rates. And there's a lot of things. We're not going to dive into this whole article, but there was two things I wanted to discuss out of it. The first one is that in this article, they brought up a statistic that 17% of buyers, home buyers this year are going to be made up of actually corporations that are purchasing residential properties to buy and then rent out as an investment. Now, I know that I've had interactions with that on a personal level with corporations buying some of my listings or competing against them, and it is tough to compete against them because it's typically a cash offer. But what I think is interesting about it is throughout the pandemic, what we've seen is a lot of these larger companies, larger corporations that would normally invest in large scale multifamily, commercial, and office space have shifted, and now they're targeting residential real estate. Have you seen that, and do you think it's a trend that we're going to continue seeing?
So it's interesting that you say that. I had a listing late last year, and Zillow put an offer on it, and it was cash offer over asking. I'd like to share my experiences with Zillow another time. However, my seller accepted that offer.
Okay.
And I was super nervous, and if you go and look online about Zillow purchasing a home or your listing or whatever, it doesn't look good, and it actually went pretty well. However, they bought it, and a couple days ago, maybe a week or two ago, I got a message saying, "Hey, I saw this listing available for rent. Wanted to know if you had any more information on it." And that was in November-ish, I think we sold that house. And this January is when I got the message that it was on the market to rent. So it's frustrating as heck because buyers that actually want these homes to live in them with their families aren't able to live in them because corporations like Zillow are buying them up and turning around and renting them at an unreasonable rate.
That is really interesting. So do you know at the time if Zillow's intention was to turn it around and sell it, or you don't know?
So I don't know. This was actually right before there was that Zillow breaking news, of them kind of backing out of all of the homes they were purchasing because they couldn't afford to flip them like they wanted to. So then they were quickly releasing a lot of ones that they had under contract, which screwed over a lot of people because they had contracts on listings that manipulated them into being able to help them the sellers buy another home. Well, then they were canceling the contracts, which screwed the sellers out of buying another home. So there was a lot of hands in the pot that were getting kind of really messy because of that. So Zillow kind of backed off from being in a wheelhouse they don't belong in. They were trying to make money in a different way. They were snatching up these homes. But then they had to stop because they couldn't afford the construction materials. They couldn't afford the loss that they would have because of the delay on the construction. So it didn't work out for them. I think they were humbled by it. And I really haven't seen any other corporations like Zillow do that, but I have seen like Open Door listings, Redfin listings. Those are more common than Zillow, but I see Zillow still kind of around here and there, but not as much as they were snatching up a lot of properties. Now you are still seeing cash investors come in doing the same thing, whether they're big corporations or not. You're seeing a lot of cash investors coming in and sweeping up these homes to rent out or to turn around and flip very quickly.
Mhm. Well, I wonder. So I don't remember if we talked about that Zillow situation in a different episode or not, but essentially they closed down their cash offers program. What was it called? Zillow. It
I
was
don't even
whatever
remember.
was their iBuying program.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it wasn't working. But what I read was they were uh, packaging up all these homes to sell off to large corporation investors like Blackstone and some of these big companies that just want to own a ton of residential real estate. So maybe that property they put out for rent because they're just trying to package it up with a ton of other single family rentals and sell it off to, another corporation.
Yeah, possibly.
Very
And
interesting.
it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating from the buyers who live in the city, who want to live in the city, who want to raise their families, and they are running ragged trying to get into a home for their families, and they can't because of these cash investors corporations that are just trying to make a buck. It's really sad. And I saw an article recently that I don't want to I want to say it was like Kevin Hart or The Rock or somebody, and another celebrity went in, and they're starting to invest and buy tons of homes in Miami, and that's so frustrating because people that live there, that spend money in their city, that, their families live there, aren't able to do that.
Yeah.
It's just a disadvantage it
It
kind of
stinks,
sucks.
but it'll kind of bring us. We won't get there yet, but it'll bring us full circle to our next topic. Because what's
Mm-hmm.
interesting is some of these large corporations are actually just funded by people like me and you's 401ks, and all of our buyers and sellers that have a retirement plan will. So that, for all they know, part of their retirement plan may be invested in one of these companies who maybe used to own and buy real estate in the form of office and commercial, and now all of a sudden they're in residential. So
Yeah.
I think it's hard to predict what direction that's going. But one thing I do like about it is it shows the strength of the residential market. If these companies that have tons of money and hopefully have really smart people running them, which we don't know that for sure, but
Yeah.
assuming they have some really smart people running those companies, and they're doubling down and saying, we know the market is going crazy, we know that prices are rising, and we want to own more real estate. So that, to me, as a person who invests and owns real estate, that's a good sign. And just to anybody who's an individual homeowner, that should make you more confident in your investment to be a homeowner.
Absolutely. If they're willing to put their money in it, so should you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a takeaway from that. So the other, and that brings us to a really good point. So the other statistic in this article was that 76% of homeowners that they surveyed, 76% said now is a good time to sell your house, but only 26% said now is a good time to buy a house. And I think that's really interesting because apparently they did the same survey this time last year, and at that time about 52% of the people said that was a good time to buy a house. So I know that you and I will probably have a different opinion, but the one thing that really drives the strength of the market is the consumer confidence. And so even though now is a seller's market, ultimately the buyers are in control, right? The level of demand is driven by the buyer's ability to afford a home and the buyer's willingness to buy a home. So in some ways, the buyers are still in control and still driving the market, even though the seller has all of the leverage. But what would you say to the other 75% or 74% of the consumers out there who are afraid to buy or don't think now is the right time to buy?
Oh, I have these conversations all day long, every day. I empathize, right? I understand that it seems scary. You're putting a lot of money out there. You have no control. You have no control as a buyer right now, and that's super frustrating. Hold on. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. But I had to have a tough conversation with one of my clients the other day because we're losing a couple offers because of the control he's trying to have by, like, we want an answer by noon, or we, certain little things by having the control in your hands. And it's just not the market. It's a seller's market. They have control. It is what it is. You just have to have that expectation and reality check of it. But as agents who work full-time, in this industry,
100%.
it's not impossible to purchase. You just have to have the conversation of expectation and set the expectations and say, you can do this, but you're going to have to understand that this is a seller's market and there's certain things that we have to do in order to win. And it's not fun. I had this conversation yesterday with a buyer. We were putting 2 offers in, and I just said, I wish I could tell you that you just put in a list price offer, but you can't. That's low. In a multiple offer situation, do highest and best, due by 6 p.m. List price isn't going to win. And I hate saying that. However, I want you to win. Don't you want to win? Don't you want the house? I'm not gonna BS you. So I think it's just very important to be realistic with your clients, to just empathize with them that we understand this market is tough, that you're not the only buyer who is going through these frustrating times, but it's going to be worth it because it's only going to get more expensive. It's only going to get a little bit more difficult. And once you understand the reality of the process, it's actually kind of relieving for you, and it's not as scary as you thought it was. I have a lot of buyers that say, oh, that wasn't so bad, or, okay, I can do that, because you're not eating a whole elephant, and you're not believing everything the media tells you. You're not believing, all these lies that, you might overhear. You're hearing from professionals. You're hearing the facts. You're hearing what's happening. And it actually is a little bit less scary when you get to talk to somebody like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had this thought when you were going through that process. I mean, the truth is every situation is different. And, you'll hear a story from maybe a friend or somebody you knew that says, oh, I had to do this and I had to do that. And I could come back to you and tell you 4 or 5 or 6 other stories of somebody who didn't have to do that, or, it worked out differently. So, I mean, the point I'm making is that's one thing that makes real estate so unique. There's not a single piece of real estate on the entire planet that is exactly the same. So when you're negotiating and going through the process of buying a house, just because you heard something about the process that maybe was negative or you didn't like, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to experience that necessarily. It is a challenging market, but there are people every day that are getting in contract on properties that they love, and there are people every day that are not paying full price. It depends on the situation, but I've seen it happen. And sometimes you might pay over, the list price and still be getting a good value. So you have to analyze every situation individually, and you can't make, broad generalizations about the market. It is really important when you get into the home buying process, the home searching process. It's really important to have somebody like you or I who can help navigate the process, because it's really challenging in this market, but people are having success with it every day.
Yep, exactly. New houses hit the market every day. There's a new opportunity every day, and to just trust us and knowing what to do.
Yeah. So, to bring it full circle on that, like consumer confidence thing, the fact that people are hesitant about the process, I understand why. Prices are rising, interest rates are rising, but at the same time, there is an extremely limited amount of supply. If you look at the statistics across the board, we don't have enough housing in the U.S. And as we talked about earlier, rental rates are also on the rise. So there is definitely a possibility that if you wait for a crash, or you just wait, that you're going to just end up paying more in the future. But everybody's circumstance is different. You've got to make that decision as an individual to say, is now the right time for me to own real estate? But I think that could bring us into our next topic, which is, should you have include residential real estate as part of your retirement plan. And I think a lot of people already do that if they're homeowners, even though they may not consider it as part of their retirement plan. Um, what are your initial thoughts on residential real estate as an investment?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that $500,000 number should just be the statement itself. I mean, that's a number that goes back into your pocket. It doesn't go into somebody else's pockets. That's growing your future. That's growing your family, your security net, your safety net. Especially like you, I mean, you invest and you have rental properties and you're bringing in income without even having to do anything. Like you're renting them out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say not having to do anything.
Well,
but
you know
yes,
what I mean.
Yeah. I do know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, when I look at real estate as an investment, you're basically getting four benefits from a financial standpoint: the appreciation value, the cash flow of the real estate, the tax benefits, and the mortgage pay down. Now, even if you're not renting the property out, you're just owning it and living there, you're still getting 3 of those 4 benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So, assuming that you hold on to the property long enough to pay it off, I mean, it's like putting your money into a high interest earning, bank account, because that appreciation value is going to keep inflating the value of the money that you're putting into the property. Mm-hmm. So is it a good idea? I think absolutely, because real estate is also a commodity, and it tends to be a more stable commodity that you could invest in. Housing is likely always going to be needed. Now, will it always be needed in the specific area that you own your property? Maybe not. Who knows what the future holds? But for most properties across the country, they tend to appreciate in value, and they tend to stay in demand because people will always need housing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's something that really won't go away if you think about it. I mean, it's just security. It's just something that you won't lose the say a business, booms for a minute and then it just tanks, and you put all your money and investment in that and then it's done for. But like you said, real estate, even if like that market crash, you held onto a property, look at what it could be worth now. I mean, it's always going to come back.
Yeah. And that's something I always tell people when we're talking about investment properties is, even if the market were to dip, I want you to be in a situation where you can at least continue to rent the property out and make your payments. And as long as you can do that, you should be able to see through any dip. Now, it's not a super liquid asset. So if you're going to need access to that capital right away, then maybe it's not the best place for you to put your money. But as long as you don't need to sell it, then you should be able to see it through any dip that the market might take. And hopefully on the other side of that, you end up with a large gain, a large amount of appreciation. And of course, for a lot of people who got into real estate in the past, 6, 7, 8 years, all they have seen has been appreciation. There's going to be stories of the other side of it, but if you look at the trajectory across history, most of the time residential real estate continues to appreciate in value. And that is one of the major benefits of owning a house, whether it's just your house or whether it's a rental property. Either way, you're securing some investment in that.
Yep, absolutely.
And you know what else I saw? So part of that Realtor.com article that we talked about earlier, for the number one city for rental versus buying, the best place to own, it was Fort Myers, which is not too far from you, Fort Myers, Florida. It said on average, the average rental rate was around $1,700. I'm sorry, the average mortgage payment was around $1,700 a month, which was for a $440,000 house. And the average rent was $4,000 a month. Think about that. That's crazy. Now they're looking at averages, so it doesn't mean that doesn't work out exactly like that you're making that much cash flow. But like as a whole, I was like, I think I want to start buying in Florida, specifically Fort Myers. And my parents are down near that.
Yeah.
Area, so
Maybe you should.
Crazy.
Call me.
Right. Could you go down there?
Yeah, it's only what, 2-hour drive. I mean, I probably would hook you up with an awesome realtor in that area who could be better value, because it is 2 hours away. I probably don't know everything. But the great thing about social media and my network is I can find you an agent in any state who's just as much of a rock star as you or I,
Yeah.
and safe, reputable, trustworthy agent that people recommend. I had a girl message me this morning asking me if I knew anybody in Alabama to help list her mom's house. I'm going to get on my network and I'm going to see who people recommend in Alabama, because I don't want her to pick any Joe Schmo. I want her to pick somebody that is trustworthy. So I would do the same for you, and I could do the same for anybody. We can hook you up with a good agent anywhere in the country.
Yeah. And I mean, that when you have a relationship with someone like us, that really helps, because then we can also be a part of the process. I'll never not offer my advice to somebody I know, no matter where they're buying, even if I can't be involved, because I'm not licensed in that area. If you come to me and I can connect you with a referral partner in another part of the country, then I can also be a party to that transaction and help give guidance as needed. Yeah, definitely
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
All right. So do you have,
go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say, do you have any behind the scenes or anything that you want to talk about this week?
Oh, what am I working on? Oh, it's been quite the week. I've submitted 3 offers in the last couple days. I've only heard back from 2. They did not get accepted. Waiting on hearing back on 1 more. I should have a listing coming soon. So just,
Nice.
when you see those listings come up, I think the behind the scenes is just the months of preparation, the months of those little conversations that happen, or the buyers say, there's a buyer who isn't ready to write yet, but they want to be. You just continue just to be available. And like you said, even if they're working with another agent or maybe, they're in California or Ohio or whatever, and they just have questions, I'm always available. So I just think that behind the scenes of all of us, doing the offers and getting the listings and all that stuff comes with a lot of just genuine conversations, whether it's direct messaging, text messaging, calls, Facebook, whatever it is. We're available. We're here to help you. So I love that. I think that, it's awesome, but behind the scenes, it takes work. It takes I'm working with a friend who we have been talking for months about possibly listing her house, but there's just so many things that come into play. Like, where are they going to go? First we have to make sure that we have that, lined up, and, that is a risk of where to go, because there's security in selling. There's not security in where you're going to go right now.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of work that goes behind the scenes of those little new listings and all that stuff. So again, I think it's just busting the myths that everything happens like that. And it does not, unfortunately. The real estate game takes patience.
Yeah, and that was my message. I want to say like end of December when we were talking about this is the market is going to be front loaded. We are totally seeing that.
Yep.
And it does take some time. So, I was looking at some statistics just yesterday afternoon. If you look at the list price to sales price ratio in Columbus, and I'm sure it's similar where you are in Florida, but you look at the trajectory of list price to sales price ratio from now all the way through May and into June, it's going straight up. So what that means is you have a higher chance of achieving above list price offers anytime from January through the spring. So and the point I'm making to what you were talking about, which is it takes a little bit of time to get things together. So if you're thinking about put your house on the market and you want to catch that peaking point in May or, March, April, May, in that range, maybe into June. June's like where it just kind of tapers off and flattens. Then, you might as well be on it right now because it's going to take a little bit of time. But that's a great point you make. There's a ton of work. There's a ton of communication, and that's what we do. If you're not good at communication, then this may not be the best job for you.
It definitely helps us prepare and understand the importance of it in relationships.
Oh man, it's crazy.
What's your behind the scenes take?
Well, I don't know. I didn't really have anything in mind when I asked you that question. I should have prepared myself more for it. But I think the behind the scenes for me is we've been having this conversation throughout the past 30 days about buyers, getting buyers into contract. You and I were talking just the other day about how challenging the market can be. And so I guess the point I'm getting at is sometimes you remember we had this conversation, sometimes you submit an offer and you're like, this is a winner. Like,
yeah.
I had that one over the weekend and it didn't get accepted, and it was really defeating for me and for the clients. So, but it goes back to my point I was making a minute ago. Every situation is different. And I was trying to explain this to them. Not every offer is going to compete against a cash offer. And,
right.
And that was happened to be the particular situation here. But, you might find a house where you're like, I don't know, I'm going to go all out for this one. And then you find out there's only one other person offering on it, and you get that and you get the contract and you're shocked about it. But that happens all the time. So, So hang in there and keep making the effort, because, you'll get one when the situation is right.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because I there's this account, the broke agent. I know I mentioned it before, but it's just like, how many times have you told your client what's meant to be will be, and you'll get it when the time is right. But it's so true. It's so true. I mean, we are getting our clients under contract. It is happening. You learn a little bit along the way of the strength of your offers need to be, sometimes it takes losing some to understand what you got to do, because I know me telling you got to do this, this, and this to win isn't fun. So you're like, let me try it my way or whatever. And sometimes it works. Sometimes your way does work, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's just putting in your eggs in the basket. And how many do you want to put in? Do you want to do half a carton, or do you want to go all in?
Yeah. All right, good. Well, this has been a great conversation. Do you have any other topics you want to hit on before we hit the road?
I don't think so. I think, just stay encouraged every day as a buyer, and sellers, we need you. Obviously, if you all band together and like March 15th, let's put all your listings on the market, and then we can get out of this. Everybody wins.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, it's been a good one. I'm excited for some more good topics next week.
Yeah. We'll see you then. Thanks, Rob.
Talk to you later.